This is Mod 14. My name is Jonathan Villa, and this is my case study. So facts of the case is Slattery Steno High is located in an affluent community. Big homes, nice lawns, very highly advanced school, well-to-do students that are very high achieving. Students have access to the latest fashion, the latest technological innovations. Miss Tate, the teacher, was hired to teach advanced science classes. She lives alone and was never married. I kind of find that a big deal because, she's more apt to feel unsafe that she lives alone. And she does not have much classroom teaching experience. While she has a lot of advanced degrees, a master's degree, a graduate degree, and she's teaching advanced classes, she doesn't really have classroom teaching experience. And so, to me, that's the most important part of this, is that she doesn't really know yet. She's only in her second year of teaching how to really control a class, how to help students. And you don't really get that without a lot of experience in the classroom. Dr. Smith, the principal, he's very highly regarded. He thinks of himself, as a really good principal. He was principal of the year. He cares how people think about him. And students have complained about Miss Tate. Dr. Smith has provided guidance, and she has not taken that advice. The problem, Miss Tate received an email directing her to a social media site. On that site, many negative responses about Miss Tate, including a possible veiled threat asking students if they would like to see Miss Tate disappear. Miss Tate, my opinion, an overreaction, fearing for her life, calls the principal in hysterics, threatening to call the police. And he investigates, decides it's not a credible threat. And Miss Tate gives him the name of a student she thinks might be responsible, which I thought was a little irresponsible of her. We don't have all the facts. We need to know a few things. First and foremost, we need to know what the other messages said. Were they all directed at Miss Tate, or were other complaints about other teachers written as well? If this page was set up at school or using a school account or some school hardware or device, it's a lot easier to track, so we have to know that. Can this constitute a threat according to law enforcement agencies? Because then that would be another road we would have to take. Was it a prank or an actual serious threat? How many students were involved? Were parents or other stakeholders involved? And how old were those students? If they're qualified as an adult and the cops, law enforcement agencies constitute this as a threat, or Miss Tate wants to press charges, then their punishment would be a little bit different, and we would have to go down that road. And finally, does the school have an SRO or a school resource officer that can possibly help with the investigation? So the main problem here is that even though this could be construed as a prank, Miss Tate took this as a threat on her life, and it was done anonymously. And in this day and age of school violence and the worry about that and lockdowns and Sandy Hook and the school in Florida, you got to take these threats a little bit seriously, very seriously as an administrator. Miss Tate does not feel safe and even leaves her home to go stay with her parents for the weekend. And a law or laws may have been broken, not to mention school policies. So my plan of action. First and foremost, I'm going to call Miss Tate into the office Monday morning, calm her fears, kind of talk her off the ledge, and reiterate to her that she is not to bring it up to the kids. Do not talk about it in class. Do not call any parents, and do not accuse any students. Do not treat any students, including the student she thought it might have been, any differently. But I'm going to listen to her feelings and concerns. And I'm going to contact higher administration, the IT department, and the SRO if available, to show them hard copies of the material, keep them in the loop. We're going to launch an investigation and interview students, every student, not just the one she accused in Miss Tate's class, and determine the severity of the threat. Was it complaining or an actual threat? And when that student is found, or students, we're going to use the handbook to determine proper punishment. So a couple of the strategies that I'm going to imply. First and foremost, we're going to have an intervention with Miss Tate. Explain to her it's most likely a prank, and try to talk to her about what is going on, what she notices in the class. But if she still wants to contact the authorities, that's a road we could go down, but we can't reverse that process. And the interview skills with the students, I'm going to use the fact that the IT department can track user data, and also mention that we can keep this in-house, but if we have to involve authorities, they have more higher quality tracking capabilities, but then it also opens up to legal consequences as opposed to an out-of-school suspension possibility. So the resolution. Fact of the matter is students have been complaining about teachers since the invention of education. To me, this case is just that. All right, it's a student complaining. The difference is social media exists now and can be saved and shared by anyone forever. So Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, your complaints on the internet are no longer private. It's not restricted to, for example, a party at your friend's house in a basement where kids are just complaining about teachers and saying we can't wait for her to leave the school or blah, blah, blah. And we want to use this as a teaching tool. We're educators, so we want to educate them at heart, right? We want to educate them about the proper uses of social media and of computers and of digital citizenship. But we're also going to review Ms. Tate's teaching practices. What led the students to complain about her? Are they just complaining, or do they, is it based on merit? I was thinking that this issue could become blown out of proportion. The principal here has a very high viewpoint of his school. He cares how his school is viewed. And if this leaked to the press or to a third party, sources could lead to negative view of the school and community. I feel concerned for the mental well-being of Ms. Tate, for her safety in the school, but I also have a concern of the mental well-being of the students. If they got to the point where they're complaining about this, what is she doing in class? How is she changed? And how is she, basically they're stressed out. How is she trying to alleviate that stress? And I value how Dr. Smith did not immediately jump the gun, so to speak, no pun intended, and contact the authorities. And he talked Ms. Tate off the ledge. She was able to go to her parents and spend the night, spend the weekend. Contacting the authorities opens up a road that cannot be shut. You can't go back, and that should be the last resort. Couple unresolved issues here. Are Ms. Tate's fears quelled? All right. Did we achieve our goal when we launched this investigation? Does she feel it's just a prank and not an actual threat? She doesn't feel that she's going to be killed. And are her teaching qualities that detrimental to students, or is it just a case of students complaining? What are the legal consequences, if any, for the students involved? And who set up the post? Who made the threat? And in this day and age of the school violence fears, was it real, or again, was it just a fantasy? I believe we acted with integrity. I listened to Ms. Tate, acted on her concerns, did not brush her aside. Contacted school officials, such as the superintendent, and involved them in the process. And we listened to student and parent complaints about Ms. Tate, and I attempted to fix her shortcomings. Dr. Smith attempted to fix her shortcomings. She didn't listen, though. Educational leader fairness. Did not jump to conclusions about the student Ms. Tate. Was sure made the post. She was sure that student was the one that did it. He didn't like her. He had been saying stuff in class about her. But we didn't just single this student out. We interviewed all students in Ms. Tate's classes, not just the ones that complained, that parents complained, or that Ms. Tate thought might be involved. And we're going to hold Ms. Tate accountable as well. Something that she had done or did might have led to this. And ethical behavior from an administrator is extremely important. We're not just going to create punishment out of thin air. We're going to discipline the students according to the handbook and the acceptable use policy. This is easier if students had used school-owned computers, the internet, or et cetera, to post this material. Our hands are a little bit tied if they had done this outside of the district, and that might be where we have to involve the legal authorities if Ms. Tate so chooses. If and when the student who typed said threat is found, we're going to call their parents and have their parents take part in the meeting and the investigation and in the discipline. And we did not allow Ms. Tate's baseless accusation to influence my thinking or my investigation.